Hello and welcome to another episode of Fikava Vet Chat. Today it's a reunion. Don't we all at some point in our lives think, come on, I had enough of it. I just want to drop it all, get into the car and start driving and just carry on driving. Well, there are a couple of our colleagues from Liverpool who have done exactly that. And to make things even more interesting, they do that together with a dog, and they do it in a converted ambulance. Their idea is to travel around the world, ending up in Uruguay eventually, with this ambulance. So we had an initial interview a little while ago. Those of you who see the YouTube videos or who follow our podcast might remember Rachel Nixon and Lawrence Doty. So hello, Rachel. Hello, Lawrence. Where do we find you at the moment? Where on the globe?
We're in Cappadocia currently, which is in sort of southern central Turkey. I'm actually currently in a garage, but hopefully back on the road soon. But yes, in Turkey.
That is always very worrying, sort of seeing you in a garage. So what happened? What broke? Or is it just a service or what's the damage? Have you had an accident or, well, come on, tell us the story.
There's a famous Land Rover mechanic who lives in Cappadocia. He's very well known in the community. And we had a couple of niggling issues that we've been looking at that we don't have facility to do without a lift and some other bits. So we thought, well, while we're here, we'll get it sorted. That was on Monday. We're obviously now Friday. And so he identified the problem, ordered the parts, and it's taking a lot longer than expected. I think we keep finding issues. Fingers crossed, tomorrow
we're back on the road.
But we have said that every day for the last few days. So it's nothing. I mean, the car was driving and was absolutely fine.
It's maintenance.
It's just there was a long list of maintenance that it just takes time. So
yeah. So I mean, just sum it up so far. I mean, how many miles, how many kilometers, how many countries have you done? Do you have any stats for us?
25 countries. I think it's 40 odd border crossings.
I think it's 23,500 kilometers so far.
23,500. Wow, that's more than half around the earth, I think, already.
Almost, so,
yes. Which is exciting. Yeah. Guinness's level was that we had to get to 20,000 kilometers to attempt the Guinness World Record. So we've kind of got to the minimum that they asked for. And obviously, we're still going. So, well, fingers crossed, they'll accept it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, your journey can be followed on all different social media channels. Just look for the Overlanding Ambulance. And I have done that. So from time to time, I had a look on Facebook, also on Instagram, sort of some of your posts, some of the places sort of I recognize. I've been there myself. But then also something is really nice. I mean, you met some of our colleagues. So for example, Andrea in Slovenia, and I think you met Pedrac as well in Montenegro.
Andrea kicked it off. She said, well, if you're coming to visit me, why don't you come and visit some other colleagues? She put us in touch with Lara.
Lara put us in contact with Novak in Serbia. And he then put us in contact with Pedrag. And we've sort of, everyone has put us in contact with the next one. And we met Varhan in Armenia.
Yes, right. Yes.
So yes, quite a lot of the vet world have been incredibly welcoming and given us a little insight into where they're from, their city, their clinic. It's been really, really lovely, actually.
Yeah. I mean, this is also what Fikava is. Some aspect Fikava is about. I mean, we're a small profession. We are a big family, but we are a bit of a family actually. So that's a nice thing. I mean, I experience that again and again, sort of when I'm around, so that I sometimes pop in at vets or somebody says to me, sort of, oh, while you're there, just say hello to my colleague so and so in that place, and it is always a happy occasion, and very often you get a spin-off from that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So any sort of really positive highlights on the journey, what would you say were really sort of magical moments where you said, wow, this we didn't expect it, and it was just so amazing? Are there any things that are standing out?
I would say the people we've had some really unexpected hospitality from people that we've just met in passing on the road. For instance, we were driving down a road in Georgia, it was going dark, and we realized we wouldn't get to the place we'd planned to camp for the night. And we went into a corner shop and said to the person in the corner shop, can we park outside your shop tonight? In Russian, which wasn't ideal. They didn't speak English. We don't speak Armenian, and we found a common language and a bit of Russian. And he said, oh no, you can't park here, but come to my house for tonight. We'd never met them, and they actually, it was one of the family's birthdays. So we gate crashed their birthday party. They hosted us for the night. The following morning, they made us breakfast, and wouldn't let us give them anything in return to say thank you. Just welcome to our country. We wanted to welcome you as our guest. And I think probably for us,
and that's an
random. It's not been a unique experience, has it? Just random people being incredibly hospitable
with their time and their resources. And we found that all across Georgia, Armenia, Turkey, the Balkans.
All of the Balkans.
I mean, pretty much most places we've been to, people reaching out, stopping us, whether we need help or not, and just, you know, I think everyone can travel to the same place, and I think for us, the trip that we're going to remember is those people that we've met along the way that have made it a very unique experience for us, both veterinary colleagues and just people we've met out on the street.
Yeah. I think it also helps if you're traveling in ambulance, because it's very unlikely that you then, if you travel with an ambulance, are likely to burgle them or do anything.
Well, we were in Turkey. It was a couple of weeks ago, or months ago actually, and a girl was hanging out the back of a car, brandishing a cardboard sign, and we couldn't see it, and we got closer, and it said "Follow us." And for whatever reason, we didn't think that they were referring to us. So we just kept driving past. And as we went past, their faces just dropped with disappointment that we had driven past. And we sort of made this split-second decision, okay, well,
we'll try and turn back and find them.
But we were on a main road. There was no chance, the chances of us trying to find each other. Obviously, we're driving an ambulance, which does stand out, and they managed to track us down. And there were 3 siblings from Turkey, and we said, "Oh, did you want to meet us because we were driving an ambulance?" They said, "Oh, we hadn't noticed that. We just noticed you had a British number plate, and we wanted to practice our English and talk to you." And that was one of those instances where it wasn't the ambulance at all, but
just being foreign and
like
they were interested. Yeah.
And that, again, another one of those experiences where it went from let's have coffee to let's
come home and meet
the parents, let's show you the town, you can stay the night, and we still stay in touch. They've really helped us through Turkey. Just one of those very unusual experiences. So.
Don't you also find that people are surprised sort of that you're making this journey with a car with a steering wheel on the right side?
Always. People are so surprised. Even here at the garage, he got in first of all into the passenger side and then was like, oh no.
Yeah, I have the same thing with my car. But the nice thing is, when you get out of your car, you're right on the pavement. So you don't have to go around the car, sort of you're right on the pavement. So actually not that bad. And with overtaking, you take more care. You need a good co-pilot, and you rather don't I mean, with an ambulance, I think it needs to be a really slow vehicle in front of you.
We're not quick. No.
Yeah.
we can remove the steering wheel. So when we leave the vehicle, there's no wheel at all.
It's for security.
For security. So people look in and going, wow, that must be really modern. It doesn't need a steering.
So it's sort of the steering wheel suddenly flying in then.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So you remove the steering wheel. How clever is that? Yeah.
Our car isn't a Land Rover is not the most secure vehicle. So at least we can take the steering wheel off so no one can steal it.
Yeah. So the biggest obstacle so far, the biggest, what shall I say, sort of a situation that threw you back or went wrong also, what would that have been?
We're breaking down in Bosnia.
We're breaking down in Bosnia was probably which was back in May, I think May.
Yeah.
We had just been staying in the national park in the south of Bosnia, beautiful place. And if anyone has thought about going to Bosnia, would highly recommend. I don't look at the
FCO website.
FCO website would scare you off going to some of these places, and actually,
no, it was
lovely place. But we were coming out of the national park. Fortunately, we'd just come off the off-roading track, and we decided to do a 3-point turn to go back to get some water. And as Rachel was perpendicular across the road, bum at the cliff edge, she went to drive forward to complete the 3-point turn, and the car wouldn't move and was rolling backwards.
With a big grating noise. So handbrake on. I thought, we'll give it another go. We kept moving backwards, and we were literally, I couldn't even get into the back because it was hanging over the drop.
Sugar.
And we were blocking the road, so no one could get past, or no one was there at that point, but we were worried that we were going to block the road. And 5 minutes later, after a bit of sweating and panicking, because we had no phone signal, we couldn't contact anyone, 2 chaps in what looked like a Del Boy-esque tiny 3-wheeler van came along, saw our plight. Google Translate wasn't working, so it was all done with charades. They tied our vehicle to theirs, and they pulled us out the way and towed us down the hill, contacted Mountain Rescue, who then called a garage, and we then got rescued. But that was probably the diciest. But again, you panic, but these things all work themselves. You're safe at that point. Yeah. Things work themselves out, and people help you.
We were in, again, similar situation to here. We had 2 weeks of waiting for parts and for the car to be fixed, and we were back on the road again.
Yeah.
And I must say, probably the stopping is probably the hardest bit, because you get used to living in the luxury of an Airbnb and not being on the road, and then having to get back out again. That probably can be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, well, but at least sort of it's not a race, sort of, and I assume you are not having a sort of a really tight schedule or something like that, where you have to say, well, tomorrow I have to be here, and then the following day I have to be here also. Then things happen, and then, well,
we have a very loose schedule. We have to be back in the UK in January for our MOT. We're currently in Turkey, and we have between now and January to get back to the UK. And we don't really have a real fixed plan beyond that, really, which is nice.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there's still a bit of mileage to be done to get you all the way to Uruguay.
Yes.
So, were there any issues with borders or something like that, where you sort of then, against your expectation, couldn't cross? I mean, also currently with the Ukraine conflict, has that affected your travel in any way? Or
well, from a border point of view, it's just been waiting. Just really long border crossings, particularly from getting into Turkey and then Turkey into Georgia and Armenia. 3 or 4 hours in some cases to cross borders, but it's mostly just queuing. The actual process of going up and doing it doesn't take very long at all.
We were worried in an ambulance with a dog, were we going to have problems at the borders? But we've not had any.
Probably 2 people have checked her passport over 43 borders.
It's been very easy, hasn't it?
Yeah, people look in, see the dog, great.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, especially while you were in the Schengen area, there often, there's a little sign, you are now in that country or that country. I mean, so nice, actually. So, yeah, I traveled over the summer months. I traveled to Scandinavia and then back through the Baltic states together with my dog. And nobody checked the passport. But then they were all Schengen countries. In any case, sort of. There are never any serious border checks. The only thing is when you come to the UK. So then they definitely will check it.
Yes.
Ukraine hasn't really affected crossing borders.
But our original route plan has had to change, hasn't it?
Yeah.
We had originally planned to, rather than going back to the UK, we had planned to keep going after Georgia into Azerbaijan, which they currently haven't opened their borders after COVID. And we were then going to go into Russia through Central Asia to Mongolia. But at the moment with the conflict, that's not something that we're well comfortable or able to do.
No, you can't.
So our plans have changed, but I think there's so much of the world to explore that it is what it is. It's not, that bit of the world at some point will be somewhere we'd love to visit, but it is for another time.
I think, I mean, I'm very, very happy to live and to be European, sort of, because I think our continent has just such a variety of cultures, of such an interesting history, and I mean, you will always find something new, and so there's more than a lifetime to explore just in our own continent.
Completely,
not even mentioning the others. We were talking about your dog, Peggy Sue. Is she still with you? Or okay, sounds good. I was wondering if you at some point might have sort of returned. There we are. Hello, and she looks still very chirpy. How does she take it all? I mean, there must be all the time other dogs and different environments, so not the territory she is used to. How does she cope?
We're lucky with her that she's a very adaptable dog. She ignores most of the dogs. Do you want to go down on it? She's not that interested in other dogs, which is brilliant, because if there's stray dogs around, she ignores them, so they typically ignore her. And I think if she was more interested in other dogs, it would have been more of a problem. She likes hiking. We love hiking, so that's brilliant.
She loves people.
She loves people.
Lots of people.
So yes, if we're in a city, there's lots of people to meet. So for her, actually, she's really loving it. I suppose the biggest challenge for us is the heat. And we change what we do. We've kept away in the hottest weather. We went up to the mountains just to keep her cool. So I think for her, that's been the biggest challenge, has been the weather.
Yeah. Any health problems with her so far on the way? Sort of any injuries or
just her eye?
Oh yeah, no, she had a traumatic ocular injury whilst we were traveling.
We were very lucky, actually. Lawrence's friend, who's training to be an ophthalmology specialist, was coming out to visit us. So that was our
Can you please take with you some sedatives, local anesthetic?
That's the only thing. Being a spaniel, she ran into a stick into her eye. But actually, thankfully, it wasn't a major injury. No. Thankfully, but actually, that's the only thing all trip so far is just that.
And probably very, very regular parasite treatment for the dog.
She is on a lot of preventative medication.
Did you take that along already from the UK, or do you stock up on that? What's available in individual countries? Or
we sort of knew how long we were traveling for, so she's on Bravecto, she's on monthly milbemycin. She
has a Seresto
collar.
And she's on domperidone.
For the leishmaniasis. And we also will spray insect repellent on a bandana as well, where we're in high risk areas. But yeah, it's all stuff that we brought from the UK.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, it is. When I was in Georgia and Armenia, I recall that they had a certain shortage of, for example, vaccines and also antiparasitics were not readily available.
Yes.
So yeah. That's good. Health-wise, how that with you two? Are you both sort of okay, or have you had any issues in the meantime?
For us,
just me and my cat.
Oh, Rachel got attacked by a feral cat in Turkey.
The cat didn't like the dog, and because I had the dog's lead, the cat didn't like me. So that was
vaccinated against rabies.
I am. We don't know it was a feral cat, so we ended up going to the
yes. Feral cats don't tend to be vaccinated.
So we thought, to be safe, I went to the to 2 hospitals in Turkey and got post-exposure prophylaxis just to be safe. I'd like to think the likelihood of catching rabies would be low, but anyway, to be safe, that's the only thing, is just me going to the hospital to get some post-rabies prophylaxis.
It was one of those moments of Google Translate. We had the first hospital porter telling us that we needn't worry, being attacked by a goat isn't a problem for rabies.
I was like,
by a goat.
Yeah, Google Translate wasn't working very well. And it told them, I have been bitten by a goat. And I was like,
bitten by a goat.
No, a cat, not a goat.
We've had a couple of those. We had a mechanic who handed over the phone to us, and we looked at it. I looked at Rachel, she looked at me, and it said, I'm going blind. I'll be back in an hour. At which point he stood up, jumped in his car and drove off. He came back completely sighted, so I suspect he wasn't.
We didn't know what Google Translate was trying to say,
no. It's got us into trouble more than once, but
yeah. At least, I mean, it's an amazing thing that we have these, and I mean, if they refine the technology more and more, I can see that we will eventually have something like the bubble fish, or so. Then you just swallow it, and then we just can speak these languages. So it's amazing what technology can, and also what it can't do. And obviously, I mean, some places, what do you do if there's no network coverage or something like that?
You desperately go through all the different common languages that you might have,
hoping there is a one.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Then another thing is also sort of with internet connection. I mean, okay, if you have Wi-Fi hotspots, fine, but also while you're traveling through, you must go through a lot of different SIM cards, or from country to country, sort of then have new ones all the time, because otherwise, I mean, you probably will have to pay an arm and a leg for your telephone.
Our UK SIM cards were taken out a long time ago. Yes. Yes.
Placed in a lead box, and never shall they go in the phone whilst we're abroad, because it's so expensive. But it's amazing. Places like Armenia and Georgia, unlimited internet, very good connection across most of the country. And there's about £10 for a month. So it's
amazing.
It's not been that expensive. It's just a case of when we go into a country, research where we can go, and some places you need to register with a passport, but usually you can just get it from a shop, pop it in, good to go. So it's actually been one of the least problematic things on the road.
Yeah. Have you had any sort of opportunities to become active as veterinary surgeons on your journey, or where colleagues said, here, come on, let's operate together? Or have you operated something like this before, where they ask you for advice or something like that?
We get a lot of, I think in the Instagram community, I think we've sort of become known as the sort of like the 2 vets in that ambulance that are going around. And so we get a lot of messages from other travelers about their dogs that they've got with them, where they don't have access or immediate access to veterinary assistance. or where they've found stray dogs and they want to know what to do about it. So we do get a sort of a steady stream of messages that we tend to field. In terms of actual needing to do veterinary work.
In Portugal, we helped that dog with for the first time, we saw a case, I guess we've never seen it in the UK, of capillaria of eyeworm. I've never seen a case of that before. And we were visiting someone in Portugal. Someone was hosting us. She said, "Oh, while you're here, do you mind having a look at the dog's eye? It's always watering." And you flicked its eyelid and were like, "Oh my golly, this is eyeworm." And we've personally never seen a case of that. So that was very interesting for us, but also it was really nice to be able to give her a diagnosis and say, there's your problem, and actually going forward.
Go to the vet.
Yes, go to the vet.
Do this in future to prevent it. So that was a really interesting for us. I suspect for European vets, very dull and very normal, but for us, we were just like, I've never seen that. I've heard about it, read about it. Interesting.
And we've had we when we went through Bosnia, we saw the Dogs Trust, and then we got asked to go to a shelter in Srebrenica, which there's a large community of dogs there, in both the shelter and in the local area, which there has been no recent neutering program. So most of them are left unneutered and they're all just breeding, and the situation is getting worse. And so we haven't done it yet, and actually I'll come on to that, the sort of the upshot of that in a bit, but we have been over the last couple of months trying to plan a spay-neuter clinic in Srebrenica for us. Initially it was just going to be Rachel and I were going to go back and try and spay some dogs and see if we could make a small dent on the problem there. And then we put it on Facebook, and we got over 100 vets and vet nurses from the UK expressing an interest in coming out to volunteer, and it turned into this much bigger project. So we then contacted various veterinary manufacturers and other suppliers, and we had a lot of kit donated. A lot of people were donating us out-of-date stuff as well. And we were in touch with the Vet Council in Bosnia, who had agreed to get us all registered for free of charge. And we were getting venues sorted. And we thought we were at a stage where we could start picking people and going. But unfortunately, we've just had bad news this week that some political issues surrounding regions of Bosnia have put a bit of spanner in the works, to the point where we aren't going to be able to go. At least not this year in the time frame that we've got, because we were meant to be doing it in the middle of November. That we're going to have to. We haven't actually announced it on Facebook yet, but that's obviously by the time this goes out, we will have. We're going to have to unfortunately pull that project, which is such a shame, because we'd raised quite a lot of money for it. We'd put a lot of time into trying to sort it, and we had a lot of people with a lot of interest. And even, we get a lot of emails saying, well, have you decided yet? I want to come, I want to take time off. So it is a shame that it's not going to be able to go.
But part or a lot of it, you probably can just put on ice, and you just do it at a later stage. Yeah.
That's it. It's the main issue is it's now been decided, despite the fact people are working.
Yes.
The Republika Srpska still wants people to have a work permit, which unfortunately it's a time thing. There's just not going to be enough time. So hopefully, you're completely right. Hopefully a lot of the legwork has been done.
Yeah.
And at a later date, we know this permit is needed, and hopefully.
In the end of the day, nobody will remember the failures or things that didn't work out, but what actually then works out. That will stay in people's memory. So because of that, even if there are things that suddenly sort of go not as planned, don't be disheartened by that. Just hang in there. I mean, that's sort of how I often feel about not all projects work out, and sometimes you just have to change the aim. So also maybe the location or something like that. But as long as something positive is coming out at the end, all is cool.
Yes.
Yeah. I see that you are carrying a VetLife T-shirt as well. So you're also on your journey continuing to fundraise for VetLife. Yeah.
VetLife and Anti Noland is our second charity.
Yes. Yeah. For our podcast listeners, again, sort of what is the best way to access sort of your journey and to follow you? Is that your website?
Probably. So the website, there are several places: website, Instagram, and Facebook. The website has sort of an overview of what we're doing. You can find some of the trip stats that you won't find elsewhere. So where we're at in terms of distance and sort of where there are maps on there, sort of giving a rough idea of where we're going next. And there are places on there if you want to find links for the charity collection and that sort of stuff. That's all on the website. In terms of our photos and sort of the travel blog that we do, the main place to find that is on Instagram. But if you want to read, because there's a limit, unfortunately, on Instagram as to how much you can write, the Facebook has the longer version of the text. If you want to read a little bit more.
I mean, it's quite detailed descriptions of your stays and things like that. How do you manage that? I mean, I'm writing a little bit of a blog, but I mean, if I compare that to the material, the amount of material you guys put out, it's just unbelievable. Sort of, when do you find the time to write all that?
Well, we are the Instagram and Facebook thinks we're still in Armenia, so we are a little bit behind. I think we don't keep up to date. Because it takes time to produce. Sometimes when you have it ready, you don't then have internet connection, or you're doing other things. And also, I think from a safety point of view, not having people exactly knowing where you are at the precise moment is always a good idea. So we do sort of have it set back slightly. But we have a system. Rachel writes notes periodically about, just because it's so easy to forget, sort of highlights funny stories or bits that we might want. And then I tend to write the prose and
fill it out,
a bit. And then Rachel takes my scruffy writing and sort of spell checks it and makes sure it makes sense.
That's such a clever idea. Sort of just jot down a few quick notes here. This one, that one, and that was good, or a quote or something like that. Then just let it sit there. You have it on paper, and then when you have time sort of to work in more detail with the material you have.
I think it has changed for us. Like I think it's been an evolving process. I think neither of us had really done a lot of social media stuff before. And I think we set out with this grand idea that we were going to do Facebook and Instagram and YouTube videos, but actually it takes so much time, even just writing stuff, unless you're going to dedicate days of the week to doing video production and that sort of stuff. So we quite early on decided to narrow it down just to photos and text. But even then, I think we've been having a bit of a revelation recently about, I think sometimes it does become a bit of okay, I've got to write something. And I think we are...
Sure.
We don't want it to take over.
We don't want it to take over, and we don't want it to be a chore. So I think sometimes we just go, okay, am I interested in writing about this? I haven't got I don't feel it. We're not going to write about it. And we're not going to necessarily write about every day, and we're not going to treat it as this big thing. And actually, I find it's... Yeah. We seem to be a little bit more in our stride again, enjoying writing rather than it being this sort of, okay, we've got to do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, it can really spoil the journey if you're all the time sort of thinking, okay, and tonight I have to, rather than going out or something like that. Or, sorry, I have to sit down, I have to write something, or so. Not
well,
good,
we love reading your blogs. They are inspirational. Let's say so.
Yeah, but this is nothing. Well, it's a different part of the world, and it's a completely different angle. But nevertheless,
we enjoy them. We really do.
Enjoy them.
Yeah. But it takes me ages, and because of that, so I'm. But from time to time, you have to throw something in. At least you have the advantage you work in a team. So so that's good. Okay, great. It was so nice. catching up with you guys again. I hope that it won't be too long before we do that again. I mean, it's so interesting, and also, I mean, for our viewers and listeners, I mean, this is a really interesting, exciting journey. And if you think, especially now at this time of the year, it's getting here in the northern Europe, it's getting grey and cold, and so have a look at the overlanding ambulance and see where you guys are going. It brings, that's the way I see it. It's bringing so much sunshine and well, just a little change to the everyday, and to see sort of what other people are doing and what you can do as veterinary surgeons. And well, I thoroughly enjoyed, and please sort of carry on entertaining us. So it's really great. So thank you very much, and then have a safe journey from here onwards. To all our listeners and viewers, if you would like to comment on this or other episodes of Fekava Vet Chat, please email vetchat@fekava.org. You can also access or comment or get in contact with us through our social media outlets on, for example, Facebook or LinkedIn. We are very happy if you leave us a review on the usual podcast sites or on our YouTube videos, and even better if you subscribe to Fekava Vet Chat. So I hope I will see or hear or somehow get in touch with you very, very soon with another episode of Fekava Vet Chat. Bye-bye.